I can still hear the scratching inside my helmet. It's not possible. There's no air here, no sound, just the endless black silence of Kepler, 9 FS night side. But the noise isn't traveling through space. It's traveling through me. A sound that isn't a sound, vibrating against the inside of my skull, like fingernails against wet glass. I can't move my arms anymore. My suit feels heavy, not from gravity, but as if something's pressing inward from every direction at once. My breathing is ragged, and each exhale fogs a visor. Only the fog doesn't fade. It curls, shapes itself into faces. Mouths open in silent screams. Eyes wide and locked on me. My own eyes staring from the wrong side of the glass. The pyramid is in front of me. It's bigger now. It shouldn't be possible, but it's closer, taller, wider, as if it's been growing every time I blink. Its angles don't add up. Each edge bends wrong, folding away from itself, stretching further than the space around it should allow. The surface is so black it swallows light whole. It's darker than the void behind it, darker than death. Somewhere over comms, Vargas is screaming, or maybe it's me, but the sound isn't right. It's being pulled apart, slowed, made wet and long, like a tape being stretched until it almost breaks. Then the entrance opens again, not like a door. There's no panel, no seam. The wall simply peels inward, folding itself away, revealing a darkness inside that feels heavier than the vacuum outside. A dark you could drown in. Something steps out. It's wearing Foster's suit. But Foster's been dead for 42 hours. 3 days earlier, the Kestrel was not built for comfort. 18 months of recycled air had given the ship a permanent tang of metal and warm plastic, no matter how hard the filters worked. 6 of us lived inside her: Dr. Aaron Vargas, Lieutenant Marcus Foster, Amira Chun, Petrov Volkov, Captain Salazar, and me. I'm not a soldier. I'm a xenogeologist. I study rocks. I dig in the dirt. But when Earth Command started funding deep space survey missions, I took the job. It wasn't just about science. There was a promise of seeing something no human had ever seen before. Kepler. 9 wasn't on any colonization shortlist. It's an ice methane world with a thin, toxic atmosphere and temperatures that would kill a man in seconds without a suit. But 15 years ago, the unmanned probe KSO-14 had passed through the system and sent back a handful of strange images before it died. One image in particular. In the shadow of a crater, half buried under frozen methane and red dust, was a shape that shouldn't have been there. A perfect black triangle. The public never saw the photo. Officially, our mission was geological survey and mineral mapping. Unofficially, we were chasing the triangle. We landed on the night side. The sun here is distant and cold, a pale coin that barely gives off light. From orbit, the pyramid looked small, maybe 50 meters tall. Standing on the ice, looking across the crater, I realized the scale had been all wrong. It wasn't small. It was colossal. It rose into the dim sky, its point vanishing into the methane haze. My eyes kept wanting to slide off it, like my brain refused to hold its shape in memory. "It's bigger than it looked," Foster said, breaking the silence. "That's an understatement," Vargas muttered. We ran full suit diagnostics before stepping onto the surface. Temperature, minus 210 Celsius. Wind, negligible. Visibility, low but stable. The pyramid was maybe 2 kilometers from our landing site. In theory, we could cross that in less than 2 hours. It took us nearly 5. The terrain was flat and featureless. Our boots crunched through a thin layer of frozen dust over solid methane ice. The pyramid stayed in sight the whole time, but it never seemed to get closer. I kept checking my HUD distance marker. The numbers ticked down slower than they should have, like the ground was stretching under us. No one spoke much. Every time we looked up, the pyramid seemed different, a slightly sharper angle, a side that looked longer than before. Once, I could have sworn the tip was pointing away from us, like it had turned. When we reached its base, I finally touched it. My glove sensor spiked instantly. Temperature readings dropped into impossible negatives, then cut out entirely. The surface felt smooth but wrong. It wasn't stone or metal or any composite I knew. It was like pressing your hand against nothing that somehow had shape. Vargas walked around the side and froze. There's an opening. I followed. She was right. An archway about 3 meters tall, perfectly triangular, stood in the center of one wall. I hadn't seen it from the front. I could have sworn it wasn't there a moment ago. Foster leaned in, shining his suit light into the dark. The beam just stopped. It didn't reflect, didn't scatter, didn't even fade. It was eaten. "What's the plan, Captain?" Chen asked. Salazar hesitated, then said, "We go in, record everything." Inside, I expected pitch black. Instead, it was something worse. There was no light, but I could see. The walls were the same black as outside, but they radiated a sort of awareness. Not illumination, not warmth, just a sensation of being watched by the space itself. Our footsteps echoed wrong. Too loud, too slow, like each sound had to fight its way through something thick before it reached us. 10 minutes in, the air pressure readings on my HUD glitched. The numbers flickered between 0 and atmospheric earth pressure, even though my suit integrity was fine. Vargas swore under her breath. She was getting the same thing. 15 minutes in, Foster's calm cut mid-sentence. 1 second he was behind us, making some joke about alien architects. The next, silence. When we turned around, the corridor stretched back into infinity. Foster was gone. Foster, respond. Salazar ordered. Nothing. We retraced our steps for nearly 10 minutes, but the entrance never appeared. It was like the pyramid had shifted around us. I checked my helmet cam footage later. In one frame, Foster's there. In the very next, he's gone. No fade, no movement, just gone. We regrouped, uneasy but trying to be professional. Salazar ordered us to mark our path with chemical light tags. It didn't matter. 5 minutes after placing them, they vanished. Not broken, not dimmed, gone, as if they'd never been there. Chen started muttering about getting back to the ship. Vargas told her to focus, but her voice shook. Even Volkov, the quiet one, was tapping at his suit display like he didn't trust what was telling him. We kept moving deeper, though I couldn't tell if we were going down, forward, or sideways. The sense of direction in there didn't work the way it should. My stomach churned like I was on a slow elevator dropping to the floor. And then the sound started. At first, I thought it was interference, static in the comms. But it wasn't in my ears. It was inside my head. A low, wet scrape like something dragging across bone. Vargas's breathing grew fast over comms. "Do you hear that?" No one wanted to answer. The noise grew louder the further we went. Sometimes it stopped for long stretches, and in those moments, the silence felt even worse. Like whatever made it was waiting for something. Then we reached the first chamber. It was vast, maybe the size of a football field, and perfectly empty. The floor was so polished it reflected us, but the reflections lagged a fraction of a second behind. I caught my own reflection, smiling once when I wasn't. We searched the room for an hour, scanning every surface. No seams, no markings, no dust, just a single archway on the far side, leading deeper. Salazar wanted to press on. Chen refused. She was trembling. "We need to go back. Now." Salazar reminded her we didn't know the way back. That's when I realized none of us could remember exactly how we come in. I could picture walking through corridors, but not the sequence. It was like trying to recall a dream. We decided to camp in the chamber, just to rest and recalibrate our bearings. I powered down my suit lights, thinking maybe we could get used to the pyramid's strange visibility. Big mistake. In the dark, I saw movement. Not fast, just there, standing at the edge of vision. Shapes that looked like us, but too thin, too tall, their helmets slightly warped. When I turned my head, they were gone. When I looked forward again, they were closer. I didn't tell the others. I should have. That night, if you can call it night, we lost Chun. Chun vanished sometime while we were resting. I use that word loosely. You can't really rest in a place that feels like it's breathing around you. We had set our suits to proximity alert, meaning if any one of us moved more than 5 meters from the group, an alarm would sound. It never went off. She was simply gone. 1 second. She was leaning against the far wall, helmet light dim, mumbling to herself. The next, there was empty black. Salazar swore and demanded everyone check their cams. Nothing. My playback was the same as Foster's disappearance. One frame, there, the next gone. No glitch, no blur. Just absence. Vargas wanted to search immediately. Volkov agreed, but something in his voice told me he was just trying to keep busy. I remember glancing back at the place Chun had been standing. I thought I saw her, just a flash, standing far down the corridor beyond the archway. But her suit looked wrong, bulkier, and her helmet visor was pure black, no reflection. I blinked, and she was gone again. We moved into the archway, marking our path with glow tags again, even though we knew it was pointless. Salazar insisted. The corridors beyond were narrower, the ceiling dipping low enough that we had to crouch in places. The walls pressed close. The black surface seemed to ripple subtly, like the skin of something alive. I kept telling myself it was a trick of my helmet light. After maybe 20 minutes, though time was starting to lose meaning, we hit our first impossible space. It was a staircase. Simple enough, except it spiraled upward and downward at the same time. I know that makes no sense, but standing at the top or bottom, you could see the steps climbing into the distance and dropping away below, as if gravity worked both ways at once. Volkov muttered something in Russian. Vargas ran a scan and frowned. Readings say it's flat. We argued about which way to go. Eventually, Salazar chose up, though we all knew that word meant nothing anymore. The climb was brutal, not from physical strain but from the disorientation. The longer I looked at the steps, the more my vision seemed to smear at the edges, like my eyes couldn't track the shape. Halfway up, I glanced over the rail and saw us, a group of 4 figures climbing down the opposite spiral. Same suits, same gear. One of them looked up at me. It was me. The other me grinned. We reached a landing, and the staircase simply ended at a blank wall. No door, no corridor, nothing. Wrong way, Vargas said flatly. We turned to go back, but the staircase wasn't there anymore. In its place was a hallway lined with tall, narrow openings like door frames. Beyond each was darkness deeper than the rest of the pyramid. My HUD wouldn't penetrate it. My sensors read 0 distance, as if there was nothing on the other side. Salazar told us to keep moving. I noticed he didn't sound like a captain anymore. More like someone just trying to keep himself from thinking too hard. We passed a dozen of those openings before something finally moved in one. It was quick, a flicker of pale light. I froze, staring into the black, and saw hands. Just hands, pale and human-looking, gripping the edges of the frame from inside. Fingers flexed, testing the surface, like they were trying to pull themselves through. I blinked. They were gone. About an hour later, or maybe 5 minutes. It's hard to tell in here. The sound came back. That same wet, scraping drag, somewhere ahead of us. Not loud, but enough to make every hair on my neck stand. Vargas swore softly under her breath. We rounded a corner and found the source, or what I thought was the source. It was Chun, or it looked like Chun. She was standing perfectly still in the middle of the corridor, back to us. Her suit was dented and scratched, as if something had gripped it hard enough to bend the plating. Her helmet was tilted slightly, like she was listening to something far away. Salazar took a step forward. Chun, respond. She didn't move. He took another step. That's when I saw her reflection in my visor glass. Only, it wasn't matching her movements. Her reflection was facing me, and her mouth was moving. The words were soundless, but I could read her lips. Run. I grabbed Salazar's arm. Don't. Chun, or the thing in her suit, turned. Her visor was gone. Not broken. Gone. As if it had never been there. Inside was just black. Not a shadow, not darkness, but something that ate light completely. Her head jerked once, twice, then she blurred. I mean blurred, like a corrupted video frame, and vanished. The scraping sound faded with her. We didn't speak for a long time after that. The corridors narrowed even more, forcing us into single file. The walls here were covered in faint lines, Not carvings, not writing, but like the surface itself had folded into thin, angular ridges. When I brushed one with my glove, my entire arm went numb for several seconds. Vargas kept mumbling about non-Euclidean surfaces and spatial compression, but I could tell it was just a way to keep herself talking. Volkov had gone completely silent. Salazar still walked at the front, but his head kept twitching, like he thought something was behind him. We reached another chamber, smaller than the first, maybe 20 meters across. The floor was covered in a thin layer of dark liquid, perfectly still. Our lights didn't reflect in it. Salazar tested it with a boot. Nothing. No ripples. We crossed one by one. Halfway across, Volkov stopped. "Something's moving in it," he said. I looked down. At first, I thought I saw our reflections again, but the figures weren't matching us. They were moving slower, their heads turning to watch us pass. One of them, my reflection, smiled. When we reached the far side, Vargas checked her suit telemetry and cursed. "We're missing 3 hours." I checked mine. Same thing. Somewhere between entering that chamber and leaving it, 3 hours of suit log were gone. No glitch, no data corruption, just a gap. We didn't speak about it. Then Volkov disappeared. It happened while we were in another narrow corridor, walking in single file. I was behind him, Vargas behind me. One moment, he was there. The next, the space he occupied was just empty. I froze, my stomach lurching. "Where?" Vargas started, but then we heard it. A voice. Not Volkov's voice. It was all of our voices, speaking at once, from somewhere ahead. The words were jumbled, layered over each other, impossible to parse. But one phrase kept repeating in my voice. "You've always been here." That's when Vargas broke. She turned and started running back the way we'd come, shouting that she couldn't stay here, that it was wrong, all wrong. I chased after her, yelling for Salazar, but the corridor stretched endlessly, and I swear the walls were moving, closing in. My breathing turned ragged, my HUD flashing proximity warnings, even though I wasn't touching anything. I lost sight of Vargas after the second turn. When I stopped to catch my breath, I realized I was alone. No Vargas, no Salazar, no corridor I recognized. Just me, and the sound, always a sound. When I say I was alone, I mean I couldn't hear anyone over comms. That didn't stop the voices. They started almost as soon as I realized I'd lost Vargas. Not just one voice, all of them. Vargas, Salazar, Foster, Chun, Volkov. Even my own, whispering just beyond the range of clarity. Too far to make out the words. Too close to ignore. Every so often, one would get louder, like it had leaned right up against my ear inside the helmet. Those moments were worse than the silences. I kept moving, trying to find a recognizable corridor. The floor tilted gradually until I felt like I was walking at a steep angle. My suit gyros insisted I was still on level ground. My stomach disagreed. The walls here weren't smooth anymore. They had that folded texture again, angular ridges, overlapping like origami frozen midfold. I kept brushing against them in the narrow passage. Each time, a cold, electric jolt ran up my arm and left it tingling. The sensation didn't fade quickly. The scraping sound had changed, too. It was still wet and slow, but now there was a faint rhythm to it, almost like breathing. After maybe half an hour, or maybe just a few minutes, I saw a light ahead. It wasn't helmet light. It was dim, bluish-white, like the glow of deep ocean bioluminescence. The corridor opened into a massive chamber, the largest I'd seen yet. The walls here weren't black. They were a translucent gray, and inside them something moved. Not shapes, not machinery. People, dozens of them, frozen mid-motion, like insects in amber. Some wore ancient Earth suits from decades ago. Others were in gear I didn't recognize. A few weren't human at all, twisted, elongated skeletons with far too many joints. Their eyes followed me as I walked, every single one. At the center of the chamber stood a column of the same black material as the pyramid's exterior. It rose from floor to ceiling, seamless, absorbing light. As I approached, the helmet cam autofocused on the surface, and for a split second, I saw Vargas's face in it. Her mouth moved. Don't let them touch you. I backed away and turned to leave and froze. The entrance I'd come through was gone. The wall had sealed over, smooth and seamless. Something moved behind the column. I told myself it was just one of the shadows, that I'd seen plenty of things in here that weren't real, that I was alone. It stepped out anyway. It was wearing Salazar's suit. I knew it wasn't him. The proportions were wrong. Arms too long, neck bent at an unnatural angle. The helmet visor was opaque black, like Chen's had been. It didn't move like a person, more like something that had studied people and was trying to copy them, but getting it just slightly wrong. Salazar? I said anyway. It tilted its head, slowly, like a bird noticing something shiny. Then it started walking toward me. I backed up until I hit the wall. My suit's external speakers crackled, and a voice came through. Salazar's voice, flat and toneless. You've always been here. That phrase again. The thing kept walking. When it was about 2 meters away, it stopped. The visor rippled just slightly, and for a moment I saw my own face staring out. Then it lunged. I fired my suit's emergency flare. The burst of white light filled the chamber for a split second, and in that instant, I saw dozens of them, all wearing crew suits, past and present, frozen mid-step, watching me. When the flare died, they were gone. The column was gone too. The chamber was empty. The entrance was back. I didn't think. I just ran. The corridors blurred into one another. I swear some repeated. The same angle bends. The same folded walls. But my HUD maps were nonsense now, flickering between contradictory layouts. Eventually, I stumbled into another open space. Not as big as the last, but wide enough to feel exposed. This one had a floor of perfectly clear material. Underneath, I could see what looked like a bottomless pit. Shapes moved in it. Huge, slow things, drifting in lazy arcs, like deep-sea creatures in a tank. I tried not to look at them as I crossed. Halfway over, I heard footsteps. Vargas emerged from the far side. Her helmet was intact, her posture steady. She raised a hand in greeting. I nearly collapsed from relief. Jesus, Vargas, I thought. Then I noticed her boots weren't touching the floor. Her feet hovered maybe an inch above it, moving in perfect rhythm, never quite making contact. And the reflection in the clear floor didn't match her steps. It was crawling toward me on hands and knees, head bent at a sickening angle. I froze. It stopped about 5 meters away. Then the reflection in the floor looked up. It was my face. I stepped back. The reflection's mouth opened impossibly wide, revealing blackness inside. Not a throat, just black. Vargas, with a thing wearing her shape, tilted her head, just like Salazar's double had. Then she stepped sideways into the wall and vanished. No ripple, no distortion. Just gone. The reflection in the floor stayed a moment longer, smiling up at me. Then it slid backward into the pit. I didn't run this time. Running wasn't getting me anywhere. I just kept walking, one foot in front of the other, into the next corridor. This one was different. Narrower. The walls pulsed faintly, like they were alive. My suit sensors were useless. Every reading just displayed a static black screen. I reached an intersection and saw movement ahead. My heart sank, more figures in suits. But as they got closer, I realized they weren't wearing suits at all. They were naked, human-shaped, but their skin was the same black material as the walls, absorbing light. Their eyes were perfectly white, no pupils, no irises, and their mouths hung open in silent screams. They didn't walk. They slid like they were on invisible tracks. I stepped back. One of them broke formation and tilted its head at me. Its mouth closed. Then it whispered in my voice, "We are what's left." Then they all vanished. By now, my sense of time was completely gone. Hunger and thirst felt distant, like my body was forgetting to need them. My suit clock still ticked, but the numbers felt arbitrary. I tried the comms again. Static. Then, faintly, Foster's voice. "Geology boy, you're almost here." That was the last straw. I broke into a run. I didn't care where I ended up. I just needed to be anywhere else. The corridors warped around me, some stretching into long tunnels, others folding back into impossible angles. I swear I saw the same intersection 3 times, but each time there were more of those black-skinned figures watching from the edges. Finally, I stumbled into another chamber. This one was small, circular. The walls were covered in what looked like veins of faint blue light, pulsing in a slow rhythm. At the center was a single object, a helmet. My helmet, scratched, dented. Exactly like mine, down to the crack in the left visor I'd gotten 2 hours after we landed. I stepped closer. The inside of the visor was dark, but something moved in it. My own face, looking terrified. My lips moved. It's too late. I turned and saw that the entrance had vanished again. The sound started up, louder now, almost deafening. That wet, dragging scrape, like something pulling itself toward me. And then I wasn't alone. Salazar, Vargas, Chun, Volkov, Foster, all of them stepped out of the walls, moving slowly in perfect sync. Their suits were intact, but their visors were black. One by one, they raised their hands and pointed at me. Then they all spoke in my voice at the exact same time. "You've always been here." Vargas and I sat back to back, the 2 remaining dots in a void that felt like it was swallowing itself. My helmet lights barely cut the dark anymore. The beams seemed to bend, curving toward the walls as if drawn into them. We hadn't moved for what felt like hours, or maybe minutes. The clocks on our HUDs were broken, literally broken. The seconds count had been stuck on 59 for over 10 minutes, then suddenly jumped backward by 3 hours. My suit's mission timer read day 5, 14:03, while Vargas's claimed day 4, 21:15. "This thing isn't a building," Vargas said, voice cracking slightly. "It's whatever's inside here. It's using space like clay." I didn't respond. Talking meant hearing my own voice echo back, and the echoes never came back right. We'd tried retracing our steps after Chen's disappearance, but the pyramid had changed again. The clean metallic corridors were gone, replaced by a shifting labyrinth of black stone and liquid-like walls that rippled when we touched them. The floor tilted unpredictably, forcing us to brace ourselves against the walls. And then there were the shadows. They didn't follow us. They waited ahead of us, dark silhouettes at the edges of our lights. They were shaped like us, same helmet, same pack, same careful stance. But when we moved, they didn't always move the same way. Sometimes they tilted their heads. Sometimes their hands twitched. At one point, I saw mine smile. The air was thick now, not breathable. Still the same cold vacuum, but dense, like moving through water. My limbs felt heavier with every step. My chest ached, and my oxygen feed hissed erratically. The sound was wrong, too. My breath in the helmet used to be steady, a comforting reminder I was still alive. Now it sometimes doubled. I'd inhale once, but hear 2 breaths. Vargas had stopped commenting on the glitches. She just stared ahead, jaw tight. We found what might have been the central chamber by accident. A massive hall with no ceiling, just blackness stretching forever above. The walls here were lined with carvings, not alien symbols, but faces. Human faces. Some were twisted in fear, mouths open mid-scream. Others looked serene, eyes closed as if sleeping. But all of them were carved with perfect, precise detail, right down to wrinkles and freckles. I recognized one immediately. Chun. She was there, etched into the wall like she'd been pressed into it, her eyes wide, her lips frozen in a silent plea. Vargas whispered something in Spanish. I didn't understand, then stepped back. "We have to get out. Now." The pyramid didn't let us leave. Every corridor out of the chamber folded back into itself, like a Mobius strip. We tried walking straight, marking the floor with white tape, but the marks would vanish when we looked away. Sometimes we'd turn a corner and see ourselves ahead, 2 suited figures walking away from us. But the moment we shouted, they'd freeze, heads tilting in perfect unison. We stopped calling out after the 3rd time. It was then that Vargas's helmet light caught something moving at the far end of the hall. Not one of the shadows. This one had weight. A humanoid figure in a Kepler 9 mission suit, dragging its leg like it was broken. The The visor was shattered, but inside there was no face, only darkness. I took a step forward before Vargas grabbed my arm. "It's not Foster," she said, voice shaking. "How do you know?" "Because it's wearing my name tag." The figure started toward us. Its movements were jerky like a bad animation loop, but it never stopped. Each step made a dull, wet sound against the floor, and my stomach turned when I realized why. Its boots were leaving footprints. Not dust, not scuff marks. Footprints made of blood. We backed away slowly, but the room seemed to shrink around us. The walls pulsed, almost breathing, and the carved faces began to shift, eyes darting, mouths twitching. Chen's stone lips began to move. I couldn't make out words, only a low, grinding whisper that rattled my teeth. Vargas clamped her hands over her helmet, as if it would help. The figure reached the edge of our light and stopped. For a moment, I thought it would vanish like the others, but instead, it lifted one trembling hand and pointed directly at Vargas. Her scream cut through the comms. I turned. She was gone. No flash of light. No pulling into the wall. Just gone. 1 second she was there. The next I was alone in the echoing dark, the sound of her scream still hanging in the air. The thing wearing her name tag tilted its head at me, then took a single step forward. And then everything stopped. The air froze. The sound cut out. Even my HUD display stilled. The blinking oxygen warning locked mid-flash. The pyramid had paused. Except for me. And the thing. We stood there in that frozen silence for, I don't know how long. My heart was still pounding, but it didn't echo in my ears anymore. Even my breathing felt distant, as though it belonged to someone else. The figure began walking again, slow but steady, closing the distance. Its movements were smoother now, almost human. It stopped just inches away from me, close enough for me to see the jagged cracks in its visor. Through the gaps, I saw my own eyes, bloodshot, wide, blinking, and then, blink, the world lurched forward again. I ran. I didn't care where. My boots pounded against the shifting floor, my light bouncing wildly as I tore through corridors that twisted like intestines. I didn't stop until my oxygen warning went from flashing red to solid, the last stage before depletion. I stumbled into a small chamber with no doors, just a single, impossible staircase that spiraled upward into the dark. My legs moved on their own, climbing, my breath loud in my ears. Halfway up, I looked back. The figure was at the base of the stairs, watching me, not moving, not following, just watching, and smiling. I don't remember the rest of the climb, only that when I reached the top, I was no longer inside the pyramid. I was outside, on the barren surface of Kepler 9F, standing in the black dust under the pale light of its distant sun. Except the pyramid wasn't there. The horizon was empty in every direction, and behind me, carved into the dust, was a perfect outline of Vargas's body, face down, arms stretched toward where the pyramid should have been. I didn't see the figure again, but I know it's still here, somewhere, because every time I blink, I see my own face staring back at me from the dark. I don't remember how long I stayed in that narrow chamber after Vargas was gone. I only know that my oxygen indicator had dropped to less than 10%, and the pressure inside my helmet was making my ears ache. I think I was crying, though my tears floated in tiny bubbles against my faceplate instead of falling. The pyramid had gone silent again. No creaks, no shifting walls, no echo of boots. Just a static hiss of my own breathing, and the blood rush in my ears. I told myself to move. If I stayed, I'd suffocate, and the thing would claim me like the others. But moving meant heading deeper, and deeper meant... I didn't finish that thought. The tunnel sloped downward, almost like a spiral, but it was too regular to be natural. Each step I took, the walls seemed to inhale, not literally moving, just feeling like they were drawing in air, or maybe drawing in me. My flashlight flickered as if my hand was shaking, but I wasn't shaking. My suit's diagnostics swore there was no power fluctuation. I passed what looked like scratch marks on the wall. At first I thought they were tool gouges, but then I saw they were handprints. Dozens of them. Some human, some not, some far too large, with too many fingers. They were indented into the stone as if the stone had been soft when pressed, like clay. I kept walking until the tunnel widened into a tall hexagonal chamber. My lights didn't reach the top, and my visor kept showing unknown structure size in place of a proper distance reading. Something stood in the center. It looked like a column of black glass, smooth and featureless, but my eyes kept trying to focus on something inside it. Shadows moved within, shapes that might have been human silhouettes, but warped like they'd been folded wrong. One of the shapes turned. It had no face, but I knew it was looking at me. Comms reactivated. The words flashed on my HUD, and suddenly, Vargas's voice crackled in my ear. "Jalen, don't look at it." I spun around. No one was there. It wasn't just Vargas's voice. Others bled into the channel. Foster, Hensley, voices from the ship, and voices I didn't know. Some sounded like children. Some whispered words I couldn't understand. All of them layered over each other, like a chorus of broken signals. I shut off my comm manually, but the voices didn't stop. They were inside my helmet. I think I blacked out for a few seconds, because one moment I was standing there, and the next, I was right in front of the black column. I don't remember walking closer. Now I could see into it clearly. The shapes were crew members, my crew, but their movements were wrong, like watching a video at the wrong frame rate. They reached out for me, but their arms bent in ways that would snap bones. Their mouths opened, but their faces split apart in more than one direction. I saw Vargas there. Her eyes were still wet with fear, but her mouth smiled in a slow, broken arc. "Join us," she mouthed. The floor shifted, not tilted. Shifted, like the chamber had just changed its own layout while I was standing in it. The walls bent toward me, and I felt an enormous pressure in my chest, like someone was trying to push me out of my own body. I stumbled back or forward. It didn't matter. The geometry was nonsense. Every step brought me closer to the column, no matter which way I turned. I screamed into my helmet. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. Then the shadows stopped moving. The column split down the middle with a sound like 1,000 knives dragging across glass. Inside, there wasn't machinery or alien tech or even more stone. There was space. Not empty outer space. Black void scattered with sharp, unmoving stars. And falling through it slowly were the crew. Their bodies turned lazily as if in zero-G, but their faces tracked me. Even Foster, whose helmet visor had been shattered when he vanished, stared without eyes. Behind them, far in the distance, something moved. Not a ship, not a creature, more like an absence, an outline of nothingness that blotted out the stars as it passed. It was coming closer. I ran, the chamber collapsing on itself behind me. Not falling rubble, just ceasing to be, like the walls were deleting themselves. My legs felt heavy, my boots sticking to the floor as though the pyramid didn't want me to leave. I burst back into the spiral tunnel, but it wasn't the same tunnel anymore. The walls were flesh now, veined, pulsing warm through my gloves. Every few meters, I passed faces embedded in the wall. Some were human, some not, all with mouths open in silent screams. I could hear my oxygen alarm now, shrill in my ears. 90 seconds. I forced myself to move faster, ignoring the burning in my legs. Finally, I saw a light ahead. White daylight, impossible in the eternal twilight of Kepler. 9F. I didn't care. I ran toward it. I emerged into the open, stumbling onto the frozen plain outside the pyramid. Except it wasn't frozen anymore. The ground was black, shiny, wet. I looked down and saw my own reflection, staring back from a surface that rippled like water. My reflection smiled. I didn't. Then it blinked. The sky above me was wrong. The clouds were gone, replaced by a slowly turning spiral of stars, as though the whole planet had been dropped into a whirlpool in space. In the center of that spiral was the outline of the thing I'd seen beyond the column. Closer now. I turned to run to the lander, but the lander wasn't there. In its place was another pyramid, identical to the first, blacker than anything around it. My oxygen warning hit 0. This is where my memory fractures. I remember falling to my knees. I remember my visor frosting over from the cold. And I remember, impossibly, Someone knocking on the outside of my helmet. When I looked up, Vargas was standing there. Her visor was gone, but she was breathing just fine. Her eyes were wide, and they were mine. "You're already inside," she said. I woke up in the same hexagonal chamber again. The black column was gone. My suit read full oxygen, full power, comms offline. I walked toward the far wall, and it opened like a mouth. Beyond was the frozen plain. I stepped out. The lander was back. For a second, I thought I'd made it. Then I saw the pyramid. It was still there, but this time it was smiling. Not physically, not with mouth, but I could feel it smiling, and I could feel it watching me through the walls. And I knew with absolute certainty that I had never left. I'm transmitting this log on repeat, in case anyone receives it. If you're hearing me, if you see a black pyramid on Kepler, 9F, or anywhere, do not enter. Do not approach. It's not a building. It's a trap, and it's still hungry.